delusional is Prince Harry? Is his grasp of reality slowly crumbling as Meghan Markle gaslights him with a huge false narrative that is just refusing to die? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we are talking about Prince Harry's comments that he made in a couple of brief clips we got of two interviews he has coming up. One is with CNN and Anderson Cooper, another one is with ITV in the UK with Tom Bradbury. And what's fascinating about these little clips and these little bits of the interview that we've gotten so far is that it's very clear, at least to me and as somebody who's been watching Royals for a long time, that Harry is no longer dealing in reality anymore. He is in the metaverse somewhere. With his own, he's concocted this whole narrative that his family are the villains and him and Meghan's global plot to take over the world and how he really should be king. And the royal family, they just didn't grovel at the feet of Meghan Markle. And he just cannot understand why. He really doesn't seem to have any grasp of an idea how everything went wrong and how his continuing to talk about it is just going to end disastrously. The man says he wants a relationship from his family, but I think anybody in the world can tell you that going on even social media in a small family and airing your dirty laundry is not going to mend fences. In fact, it's just going to make everything worse. So why does he continue to go along this very, very self-destructive path? We're going to investigate that just a little bit today and just going over a couple of the comments he made and why they are really, guys, so wrong and really a way to gaslight mostly the American public about things that Harry's hoping they don't investigate into or something he's so deluded about you can't even trust his recollections anymore. But if you guys haven't been here at Royal News Network before, like I said, my name is Brittany, and on this channel I provide compelling royal commentary about the latest news and sometimes a little bit of gossip too. In addition, I'll be reviewing television shows and movies and sharing a bit about history as well. So if you guys want to subscribe, that would be great. Hopefully by the time this video is up, which should be on the 3rd, I will have over 80,000 subscribers. But if you guys want to continue to subscribe, I would just really appreciate it. I'm so excited to start off this new year. I have a ton of content planned and I'm trying to manage everything, and sometimes it's a little bit challenging, but I'm super stoked. And I'm also excited to announce the launch of Royal Wire, which will be a weekly email newsletter from Substack that I'll put together. I'll have some compelling royal commentary, royal news, history, and maybe a bit about, movies and books that are coming out that might be of interest to you. I love reading. All of this shelf basically is entirely devoted to royals, which I'm very excited about. And honestly, this bookshelf, I technically have 3. This is just the only one I can fit right now. I technically have 2 more with a lot of other books about European history, but these are all based on royals. I love reading about royals, and so I'm really hoping to, I know I've said this forever, for at some point to start a book club because I want to read more about royals and I want you guys to be able to talk about it as well. In addition, I also have a trip to the UK planned, so if you want to check that out, I will have a link in the description box down below. So this is an opportunity for you guys to join me, and we'll go to London, and then we'll go to the Cotswolds, and we'll go to the Tower of London, St. Paul's, Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace, Westminster Abbey. So we'll just try to do and hit a lot of different sites throughout the city, and it'll be around Memorial Day weekend in the States. But like I said, these latest bits from Harry, oh my gosh. I woke up to these and I was like, darn, I had another video I was gonna finish editing this morning, and then I was gonna get that out, and then I was like, well, maybe I can plan for something later. And I was like, oh no, Harry has more coming out. And honestly, every time he opens his mouth, every time Meghan opens her mouth, I feel like their public perception goes down. I feel like the public likes them less and less, and yet they keep talking. They keep talking. So let's go over first the ITV interview that'll air on ITV. I'm really hoping it'll be on BritBox, and so I will be looking out for that. And then I do have Paramount Plus as well, because I pay now a lot for the subscriptions to various streaming platforms for different royal movies and shows and stuff. So I'm hoping to be able to grow being able to review television shows and movies based around royals. But I just don't have the time right now. Let's just go over what we got from ITV, because it is, again, very telling about where this is going. I feel like Harry lives in some sort of alternative multiverse where he was somehow the grievously offended party who did absolutely nothing wrong, and his family are all the villains in this, and he's concocted this broad narrative that really, when you look at it closely, really just doesn't make a whole ton of sense. But I think the danger is here, he still somewhat believes the lie. And that, I think, is the true danger, is that he thinks he's living in the multiverse. He's not just looking at it thinking of a fantasy. No, no, no. He's there. But let's get back to what he said here in ITV.
It never needed to be this way. The leaking and the planting. I want a family, not an institution.
One of the key things Harry says here is, I want a family. I don't want an institution. I was like, well, bud, you were born into an institution, which is also part of your family. So you cannot separate them, and you cannot require your father and your brother to separate them either. Charles and William, and then George after that, and I feel like all the Wales's children, their job is to keep the monarchy intact. It's not about you. When he says things like that, all I can think of, it's not about you. It's not about your personal desires or anything like that. You are born within a monarchy. If you want to leave and be selfish and do all the things that you want to do, hey, you can do that. Not saying that's necessarily bad, but when you are a part of a monarchy, you are part of something bigger than yourself. It's like when you were in the military. Just because they send you to Afghanistan and you don't want to go doesn't mean you can stomp your foot and go, oh, well, I hate that, so no, I'm not going to go. I'm going to do my own thing. That's not how it works in the military. Harry should know that. The monarchy is the same way. And I understand that that is a burden, but at the same time, you get enormous benefits. I mean, to be a part of a monarchy, you get a chance to shape history. Even though they don't have any necessarily huge constitutional powers anymore, you're the head of a state. You're a head of a country, multiple countries. You get to travel the world representing your country, your heritage, your culture. And it's just should be seen as a blessing. I realize there's a lot of negatives to it too, but I'm a positive person just in general. So it's like, think of the opportunity to be truly a part of history. I don't think my name will probably be written down in many places, probably not. But it's like, you know, Harry, if you're in the line of succession, your name will be written there somewhere. And so this idea Harry has that, well, it's an institution, I just want a family. It's like being part of that family means that you protect the institution. All the members of the family should know that. You protect the institution. Why? Because it's the only thing that gives you relevance. It's the only reason Harry has his platform is that freaking institution. So him complaining about it, he just sounds utterly delusional. Yes, it is hard. It is a burden. You can't just be a family. But you can be a family within it. All the members, if you want to keep the houses, if you want to keep your house at Frogmore Cottage, Harry, if Meghan wants to have royal jewelry, if Meghan wanted to have foreign royal tours, yes, you have to be part of the institution. They're not just going to send you out places because you're family. That's not how this works. That's not how this works in the slightest. And again, if you are a mature person, if you are a smart person, if you are an intelligent person, you understand the burdens. And if that's something you can't do, well, then you need to quietly leave. The way Harry and Meghan left, they tried to trash the institution. They sent out their demands of the monarchy that they would still travel on behalf of the Queen. They were still internationally protected persons, so ergo they still get security from the UK and basically any other country they step foot into. I mean, that's ridiculous. That is insane. That's juvenile to think that you can leave and demand that you're half in, half out. Everybody agreed, and so it's donezo. And the rest of the royal family's like, no, that's not how this works. I feel like what Harry doesn't understand, or what Harry is refusing to understand, is that they can't just go on the whims of him and his wife. The monarchy must protect the institution. Charles and William and George eventually, and I feel like the Wales's children will be okay with this because I feel like they're being raised in a supportive and pretty functional environment, is that yes, there are family things that you need to take care of, but also our greater burden is to the people of the UK. It's not to the whims of a D-list actress, a former D-list actress, and her constitutionally irrelevant husband. They cannot change the entire monarchy to suit the needs of Harry and Meghan. That, again, there is something so much bigger here than Meghan wanting to make money on the side and her wanting to purchase Hermes blankets and Dior bags and everything. Who cares? William and Charles represent the monarchy. They represent an entire country. I feel like Harry, again, I don't know if it's delusion, I don't know if it's gaslighting, I don't know what, but again, this weird demand that somehow, well, I just want a family, not an institution. It's like, well, you either have both or you have none. At this point, that's the path Harry has chosen. And again, it did not have to be that way. But Harry wanted the whole system to change and flip on a dime to satisfy Meghan Markle's desires.
They feel as though it's better to keep us somehow as the villains. They've shown absolutely no willingness to reconcile. I would like to get my father back. I would like to have my brother back.
So Harry says they've been cast as the villains. It's like, well, you've made that really easy to do. You made that super easy to do, bud, because you have basically put yourself against your family. You have put yourself publicly against the monarchy and what it stands for. So yes, you were cast internationally as the villain. Again, this is not rocket science. And the media, again, they can spin things and everything, but you have to give them the ammunition to do so, and Harry and Meghan have done that. And people can see the damage that they've done. They've wrecked a family. Harry didn't go and see his grandparents as much that last year before they died. I know part of it was COVID, but that wasn't all of it. And when the pandemic happened, Harry could have decided, hey, you know what, given all this, given the fact that we may not be able to see my grandparents much anymore, let's go ahead and go back to the UK. We'll be at Frogmore Cottage. We'll do our own thing while at the same time going to see our grandparents. I don't think anybody can look at this situation and say it's healthy and say that Harry and Meghan are not the villains, because what we've seen over this last year, especially at the Jubilee, at Christmas, at the Christmas concert, is the Windsors coming together. So all the Windsors came to every major event. Now, we didn't see everybody at the Trooping the Color because they were inside the observation area and not everybody went out on the balcony. But we know the members of the family, they went on top of St. James's Palace to watch the fly past. So we know they did that. Who didn't do that? Harry and Meghan. Harry and Meghan went to the official ceremony and then they left. They went to the service of Thanksgiving at St. Paul's, but what did they do? They left right afterwards, even though there was an entire separate lunch event that all the other members of the family went to and seemed to have a fantastic time at. I love this picture of Sophie, who is Lord Frederick Windsor's wife, and Zara Phillips Tyndall, and they look like they're having a great time. I love their matching outfits, and they look friendly with each other. They look like friends. They look like they enjoy spending time with each other. And then we saw this, again, like I said, at the concert and then at the pageant, is that the kids, especially at the pageant, the kids were all over each other. They were chatting, they were interacting, they were talking with the parents. One of the kids leaned her head, I think it was Mia Tyndall, leaned her head on Catherine. And so you can tell these kids spend a lot of time together and that their parents spend a lot of time together. Who wasn't there? Harry and Meghan. They abandoned ship and left early. And they supposedly had a first birthday party for Lilibet. Of course, there's all these other obligations that the rest of the royals have, so hardly anybody could attend it. And they planned it knowing that. And so it's really easy to see how Harry and Meghan have separated themselves, made themselves separate. So of course it's easy to cast you as the villain. The Windsors look like a fun lot. You look angry, bitter, vindictive, sad, so many things that are all negative. And you've done that to yourself. That's just something we can observe. We can observe that the Windsors are all spending time together while you're separate doing your own thing because you're too good for them now. Is that the case? I don't know. But it's just one of those things where it's just such obvious PR. Harry and Meghan should have been at every single public event of the Jubilee. Or nothing at all. Why even come if you're only going to go there for two things? Hardly going to show up for any family time and just leave. And then we have, obviously, the Queen's death, is that Meghan apparently wanted to go up to Balmoral with Harry, and the Windsors are like, no. No, no, no. They don't trust her at all. Again, like I said in the previous video, they wanted to make sure she was off the flipping continent before they even had the Sandringham Summit. She had to be off the continent before they would even think to meet with Harry. That's because they don't trust her. And so she wanted to come up to Balmoral, and they're like, no, absolutely not. So Harry was late and could have, I mean, all the Windsors, most of them actually missed the Queen's passing, but Harry was late and left first because Meghan couldn't come. But you understood why Meghan couldn't come. Again, that he just doesn't seem to understand these basic things It's ridiculous. And they attended things for the funeral, but they were obviously very publicly also set aside. They were only at particular official events. Everything else, they were separate. And apparently they did want to go on a walkabout by themselves. And then Catherine and William were like, well, no, we'll invite you to go walk around with us. So Harry and Meghan have set themselves up as the villains. How can the royals, who seem warm and friendly and hanging out with each other and chatting with each other? I mean, I loved the meeting between Catherine and Charles and William at the Christmas Carol concert. I loved how Catherine interacted and smiled at Camilla when she was officiated into the Order of the Garters. That you can tell they have this great family relationship. Who doesn't? Harry and Meghan. Again, this is so obvious. It's like, who is part of the group and who is separate? Sometimes separateness is, if you're in, for example, in Germany in 1939 and you're separate, that's probably a good thing. But in this situation, I feel like we see just a ton of warmth and nothing but good things coming from the Windsors for the most part, whereas Harry and Meghan are the ones screaming and crying and whining and stomping their feet in the corner, looking like the crazy ones. So this has been very easy for them to be cast as the villains. And then Harry goes on, well, I want a relationship with my father. I want one with my brother. And it's like, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? What in your blockheaded mind makes you think that doing this will help you in your family relationships? I mean, even me, if I went on Facebook right now and trash some of my family members publicly, would they be receptive to me when I say, hey, I need some help on a project? No, and I have no desire to go out and do that. There's certain things you just keep private. There's certain things, again, that are better held in, not inside, but dealt with privately. I feel like that's a more mature thing to do. Yes, if something is not addressed, maybe you need to explore other avenues. That's what I've said about the Lady Susan Hussey thing, is that this woman, I can't remember her name now, went out and blasted Lady Susan on social media, and it's like, and put the monarchy in a really bad spot there. And I feel like they overreacted to it because of everything that Meghan has said. But this woman really should have addressed these issues privately. If Buckingham Palace did not address them, then yes, maybe go to the media. Yes, maybe explore other avenues. But I feel like it's something to try to humiliate and get somebody to grovel to you, is to air it publicly hoping for a response. That's not a healthy thing to do, and that definitely won't lead you to managing and salvaging your relationships. I mean, at this point, Harry can basically write off his relationship with his brother and his father. Now, I feel like forgiveness is a key part of the Christian faith, so I know that there is forgiveness that can happen, but here's the thing. Harry wants this groveling apology. Meghan Markle wants this groveling apology from the monarchy without offering anything in return. I feel like you can personally forgive somebody, but I feel like to mend this relationship, there needs to be a recognition that there have been faults on both sides. There have been faults on both sides here. The monarchy didn't do everything perfectly. But Harry and Meghan, I feel like they are much more the instigators and the causers of chaos than the monarchy has ever been. So I feel like this idea that Harry's like, well, they're doing nothing to reconcile. It's like, yeah, because you're not doing anything to take responsibility for yourself and your actions and your wife's actions. Again, this is basic 101 human interaction. Human interaction, yes, sometimes there is something where it's totally your fault, but looking at all this and having watched the monarchy, Harry and Meghan, apparently they bullied staff members. They were difficult to work for. They made demands. I mean, they made outrageous demands on their Mexit letter on their website. It was insane, the demands they were making. The monarchy can never have abided by those. And so it's crazy to think they would have, but I think Harry really thought they would abide by what Meghan Markle wanted. And the monarchy's like, no, we can't do that. We really cannot do that because, again, we have a greater purpose to serve. So if Harry's hoping that maybe screaming and diminishing his brother and his father publicly will help his relationships, yeah, no, bud. The reconciliation at this point, I don't think it'll ever happen unless Harry, again, takes responsibilities for some of the things he's done. That's also, not only is that good for their relationship, I feel like that's a mature thing to do. I feel like Harry, across all this, comes across as a deluded man-child who's screaming and throwing toys out of his pram with no idea of why everything has gone so terribly and catastrophically wrong for him and Meghan. So now to the CNN interview.
Why be so public? You say you tried to do this privately.
And every single time I've tried to do it privately, there have been briefings and leakings and planting of stories against me and my wife.
So Harry claims that anytime he tried to address something publicly, everything would be leaked to the press. So there are a couple of different ways we can look at it. So Harry blames his family for all this. They're the ones who are leaking to the press. But what if it's Meghan? What if it's Meghan leaking things to the press? So I will say I've watched royals for a long time. I've watched them closely for 10 years, ever since William and Catherine got married. My interest in royals just skyrocketed. So I read a ton of things. So I can say with a pretty good idea that most of the time when I read things about royals and the monarchy, before Meghan entered the picture, I'm like, oh gosh, that's so garbage. Especially in American media, something that's in Touch or Us Weekly, something like that, I would guarantee most of those things were probably made up. In People magazine, because that one does have a closer association with the royals and they have a royal editor and everything, I could see some of that actually leaning more on the truth. But when Meghan entered the picture, things changed drastically. We got leaks and leaks and leaks all the freaking time. And a lot of them at the beginning were positive about Meghan, how great Meghan was, how wonderful she was. Oh, look, she did this for the staff. She did that for the staff. All these different things I felt like were very positive about Meghan. So this idea that it was only the palace leaking, no. Meghan leaked a ton. Meghan leaked a ton, I think, because again, royal watching and everything changed. The reporting we got on royals went up by 1,000. I think it was Shawn Lester who said that when she was a former editor for Star Magazine, that they wouldn't really get anything ever from the palace. But once Meghan entered the picture, it became a leaking ship. And there's actually two different ways you can look at it. Again, I think Meghan leaked a lot. Meghan had her people leak a lot because she wanted to have this good public image and she didn't understand how the royal palace machinery worked. And so I feel like she always used her outside PR agency to constantly plant good stories about her, thinking that would help her situation. And I also think she could have leaked particular stories to make it easier to manipulate Harry to get him outside the royal family. I think that's entirely possible. That some of what Harry is blaming on his family was actually done by his wife because she wanted him to leave, because she needed him in Hollywood. So hopefully that she could finally pursue her Hollywood dream because no director would give her the time of day before she became a royal. And so in many ways she succeeded. She absolutely succeeded. And the other idea to consider is that it was the staffers leaking because they hated Harry and Meghan. So Harry was pretty well liked by all the royal staff members until Meghan entered the picture. She became a massive diva and fueled by her ego that she was all of a sudden had managed to catch a rather dim-witted prince. And so it fueled her ego. She was a awful person to work for, apparently. And so Harry adopted much of that mentality. Obviously, what Meghan wants, Meghan gets. And so what did Harry and Meghan not want and get? Well, it was probably their staffers leaking negative stories about them because they were awful people to work for. That's what happens when you treat people poorly, is that you cannot trust them to keep quiet about particular things. And the palace too, I will totally say, palace leak stories. Of course it does. Of course it does. Harry going on, I'll show the clip later, Harry going on this diatribe about the royals. And they shared particular stories with the newspaper and then they're published and then Buckingham Palace says no comment. It's like, well, no freaking duh. Like, we know that. That is not rocket science, Harry. That does not surprise me in the slightest. Doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Of course they do. That's good PR. What the heck is he talking about? But again, it wasn't these, they didn't do all the things that Meghan was demanding them doing. And part of it, I think, is going back to this idea that they can't help Harry and Meghan save themselves when they are the terrible nightmare PR people. I said this in a Twitter post. When you go and you have a $200,000 to $500,000 baby shower and parade around New York in a bunch of different outfits with your friends, being very flashy and splashy in the news media, yeah, your PR company can't help you with that because that was dumb. They can't help you save yourselves in that situation. Because even if, supposedly, as Meghan claims, her friends paid for it, it looks bad. My taxpayer money was used to help fund your security while you were there. My taxpayer money. The British taxpayer money. They paid for the plane flights for her security guards. They paid for their hotel rooms. This idea that Meghan's like, well, nobody paid for anything but my friends. Like, no, absolutely not. No way in heck did that happen. So again, it's just this whole diluted thing. But again, palace leaks, Catherine and William's side leaks, absolutely. That's just good PR. But Harry apparently doesn't agree with that.
You know, the family motto is never complain, never explain, but it's just a motto, and it doesn't really hold.
There's a lot of complaining and a lot of explaining.
Endless.
Private being done through leaks.
Through leaks.
Yes. Again, Harry, of course they leak. This is not, again, rocket science. Of course they do. I would not fault the monarchy in the slightest for leaking stories. That's, again, just good PR strategy. But Harry, again, he wanted them to do something very particular that they could not do, and that's salvage Harry and Meghan from themselves. You can't do that. You can't salvage from a PR strategy a $200,000 to $500,000 baby shower in New York. You just can't do it. What is the monarchy supposed to tell the taxpayers their money was being used for? So that this woman could have this grand old party in New York that they weren't invited to in this $10,000 a night suite? Yeah, that's not going to go over well.
They will feed or have a conversation with the correspondent, and that correspondent will literally be spoon-fed information and write the story, and then at the bottom of it, they will say that they've reached out to Buckingham Palace for comment.
Okay, what Harry's talking about is what Omid Scobie does. That is what Omid Scobie does. Their own freaking biographer. Yeah, what is he talking about? Again, it's this whole thing where this delusion exists with Harry, and it's just crazy to me. It's like, you think that the palace is the only people that leak? We've seen Omid Scobie. All he does is print things that you guys tell him to print. That's honestly, I think, all he does, because he has no other contacts in the monarchy, because I don't think anybody else would give him the freaking time of day, because again, they don't trust him. He will never be on a tour with William and Catherine. They would bar that 100%. And so again, Harry's talking about what he does. So it's utter hypocrisy what he's talking about.
But the whole story is Buckingham Palace commenting.
So again, everybody does this, Harry. This is not something just relegated to the palace. This is what celebrities do. It's what politicians do. It's like what everybody does in the journalistic industry, bud. Like, I hate to burst your bubble that you think this is somehow different, but he gets to what really angers him here.
So when we're being told for the last 6 years, we can't put a statement out to protect you, but you do it for other members of the family, there becomes a point when silence is betrayal.
But I feel like, again, the monarchy feels a sense of betrayal because there's only so much they can do to help Harry and Meghan help themselves. Again, when you're very splashy, when you're spending a lot of money, when you're being hypocritical, they can't help you with that. If you are whining and stating all these things about climate change and then you're jumping in different private jets, what is your PR company supposed to do? What are they supposed to do when you're doing that? When you're going to these billionaire retreats and the palace is asked a question, they're like, well, he's going. I mean, we have nothing else we can really say about this. Or when they're skipping royal duties and they're at Elton John's house in the south of France when perhaps they should be doing royal duties somewhere. And they're like, well, we can't help you. And you can say the same thing about other members of the royal family as well. Obviously, you cannot help Prince Andrew when he does a disastrous interview in the UK that he is never, ever going to recover from. That was an epic, epic disaster. But Harry and Meghan, Andrews was like a one-shot, absolutely implosion of whatever status and branding he had left. He should have never done that interview. He should have never done that interview, and he should have been coached very well. But he was so arrogant and narcissistic, he did not understand that the words he was saying were going to come back and bite him on the butt big time. I feel like Harry and Meghan are much the same. They don't seem to understand that their actions can cause reactions. And I feel like they wanted the palace to attack every negative story, hit and dismiss every negative story, But the palace, they can't do that, because what is required of the monarchy is the allowance of criticism. You must be able to criticize them. They're getting taxpayer money. You need to be able to criticize the monarchy. You need to be able to criticize its members. I have a video I still need to adjust now because new numbers came out and everything about William and Catherine, and questions on, are they working enough as royals? And I think there is, to a certain extent, a question there that should be answered, especially as their children are getting older. They're now the Prince and Princess of Wales, and they've really been allowed, I think, to have this very relaxed entry into royal life. But it's been 12 years now, guys. It's almost been 12 years since you got married. It's time to step it up a bit. It's time to step it up a bit. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. Even though their children are still somewhat young, they're getting a lot older. Louis will be 5 this year. George will be 10. So their children are growing and getting a lot older. So I think there is latitude for them to be able, especially because their kids are in school, her parents are nearby, Catherine's parents, for them to be doing a lot more than they're doing. Those conversations are very, very important to have. That Harry and Meghan don't want anybody to question anything is horrible, because it is bad for business for the monarchy. And that's why Harry and Meghan just don't work. They don't understand that, yes, you will be criticized. You're taking money from the taxpayers. You're living a taxpayer-funded lifestyle. You will be on the receiving end of criticism. And that was Meghan Markle's issue, is that she could not just skate through it without anybody calling her out on her BS. That wouldn't happen. As a C-list actress, I feel like Meghan spun a lot of stories because she knew nobody would check. And so she tried to do the same thing in the monarchy. But guess what? The Brits check you. Everybody checks you because they don't necessarily fully trust you. And so that is the danger that I feel like Harry and Meghan are going down, is that people just don't trust them. And then at this point, their brand is so damaged, how can they recover? Because again, I don't think any of this will end well for Harry. I think his family relationships, to a certain extent, are irreparably damaged. I don't think he'll ever fully recover his relationship with his brother. His father, I think, will want to forgive him. He wants to have a relationship with his son. And I think William does too. But when you've betrayed your family on such a level, how can they? How can they just welcome you back as if nothing has happened? And I feel like Harry, in his multiverse mindset, he believes he could just be welcomed back in. And that's just not how this is ever going to work for him, unfortunately. I hate to say it, Harry, but you don't have much of a leg to stand on here. Your family will always have you at arm's length now because they can't trust you. They cannot trust you to do the right thing when it comes to the family, the country, so many different things. Harry will be forever now on the outside instead of on the inside. And I feel like a lot of this, again, is charged and developed and grown by Meghan Markle. Now, I can't say any of this for sure. This is just my supposition, but I think Meghan, although I thought for a while maybe she wanted to try to be a royal, maybe, she didn't really want to. She wanted to go to Hollywood. But the unfortunate thing for Meghan Markle is she maybe had some innate talent, because apparently, one of her professors from Northwestern thought she did have some talent in drama, but she did not want to go on stage. She did not want to hone or learn her craft. She just thought she was the cat's meow and she could just walk in and get any role. Well, Hollywood hit her in the face pretty quickly after that, and she could not get any roles in Tinseltown. So she had to go to Toronto, and she had a great role there in Suits, but that was going to be her only major role. Again, she's not a great actress. She was growing out of the hot girl roles, so she didn't really have much of a future. So she glommed onto Harry, and then she's like, hey, guess what? I could finally make it back to Hollywood, and all my Hollywood dreams will come true, and I'll be the savior of the world, the savior of humanity. I was the best thing that ever happened to the monarchy. They're just going to welcome me back with open arms, and it hasn't happened. Again, because at some point, the rubber actually has to meet the road, and if you are going to make this dream Meghan has a reality, you need to have talent. You need to actually be a creative, and I don't think Meghan is one. I don't think she is one. I think she thinks she's one. But I feel like because they had to do this last minute documentary with Netflix that crashed and burned, nobody cares about it, that they don't have anything else set up with Spotify yet. We have no sign that we'll get a second season of Archetypes. What was the point of all this? What was the point? They left the royal family to create these multi-million-dollar deals, but Meghan always wanted the fame and money and she didn't want to actually do the hard work to make that happen. And so I feel like that reality is hitting. Again, I was reading through a bit about some of the signs of narcissists, and what I thought was really interesting is that one of the signs, according to the Daily Mail in an article that just came out, is that one of the signs of narcissists is that they're skilled at future faking. In relationships, narcissists often engage in future faking. They promise the world to you after knowing them for a short time. They convince you that you will travel the world together or some other unbelievable promise, but eventually you get mic dropped. They suddenly leave when you were just naming your children with them. In other words, they say whatever they need to say to get you hooked on them and the relationship, but it doesn't end well. And I feel like that is what's happening right now, is that Meghan promised Harry this grand vision of their future in Hollywood, that they would be these movers and shakers and these incredible creatives, and all this stuff would come together and they'd be glorious. They'd be the pinnacle of the town. And that hasn't happened. And I don't think it ever will, because they're not easy to work for. Meghan definitely is not. And so how can Harry and Meghan expect to make it in Hollywood if they don't have the talent? Harry doesn't have the brains to get any of this done. And I feel like this is all coming together and smacking Harry in the face a bit. But he is so still deluded by this. He bought into the lie Meghan Markle sold to him. And I think part of that too, and I'll just end on this, is that Harry, I think, always did have a chip on his shoulder that he wasn't the heir. And I get it. There's so many spares with the same issue. It's really hard, I think, to just think I was one birth away from being the future king. But I feel like the sign of a healthy, mature person is relishing in the role of second fiddle and understanding that you as a person can add enormous value to this institution that'll last a lifetime. And I feel like that's been the attitude of Princess Anne. She was born the spare, but once two other brothers, younger brothers, came along 10 years later, she was bumped back to being the very last in the line of succession in terms of her siblings, and then she got bumped down by all her nieces and nephews. But she still works for the monarchy. She still appreciates that institution, and she works for it knowing that even though she'll never be queen, she has this incredible role as a princess royal, and she feels an honor attached to that role. She feels honored to be the daughter of the queen. Harry doesn't feel any of that. Harry hates everything about the monarchy. That's clear. But he hates it because he couldn't be king. But he was never going to be king. He was never going to be king. And that's perfectly fine, but you have to be okay with that. I'm of the opinion now that really, if you are the heir and you're having children, you need to have at least 3 kids, or your kids need to be opposite gender. I feel like especially, girl boy or boy girl, I feel like those dynamics work better. And if you have, so for example, the Waleses, they have 2 boys and 1 girl. I feel like that, especially when you have 3, the 2 younger kids can be together and can relish in their roles as spares better, and they can support each other even though they won't be the monarch. And so I feel like, especially because they were 2 boys, Harry and William, and I feel like because Harry was coddled, he was spoiled, so many different things, that he has come to this delusional belief that he was the rightful king. And I was one of those for a while who thought Harry might make better king material. I was completely wrong. But Harry, I feel like, believed the lies he was reading on social media, the lies that Meghan Markle was spinning to him, this delusional fantasy, this future fantasy, well, we could create our own court. Even though you're not going to be king, you're going to be the king of people's hearts. And he was for a while. But who wrecked that? Meghan Markle, because Harry believed her lies. He believed her delusional beliefs. He believed her fairy tale that she was spinning. And because of that, they've been, I think, essentially ruined in the realm of public perception. Harry and Meghan, their reputations will never, ever recover from everything they've done. Never. And I don't think they'll be well liked. I think this year will be their year they completely crash and burn as a brand. And I feel like they only have themselves to blame. And Harry just getting on and talking about his delusional fantasies, he's preying on the fact that people are ignorant, but I feel like more and more he comes across as a delusional man-child who has no clue what's going on and is repeating the lies told to him by his wife. And I think that is incredibly sad. And Harry has an obligation, I think, if he wants to repair his relationship with his family. I feel like that can happen, but he needs to take some responsibility in the situation. And he's clearly not there yet. But he's also, I will say, stuck. his kids will be raised in the US. Meghan will not allow Harry to have, if they go through a divorce, I feel like Harry will come out even more damaged than he was when he started off their relationship. None of it's good. None of it's good. And I just think it's incredibly sad. So guys, let me know what you think of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again really, really soon. Bye.